officers heard these officers get on the television and heard their defense being, well, we thought he was on PCP, so we had to beat him into submission. All of us knew that something's wrong with us because they went through the same training we did. And if a person's on PCP, Officer Dalton's arrested them, I've arrested them, it takes a sufficient amount of manpower to physically overpower them so you don't have to kill them to get them arrested because they don't feel pain. And so to say that you have to get 15 officers around a man and beat them with batons, well, not all 15 beat them, but they had 15 to 20 officers standing around that could have sufficiently overpowered Rodney King, believe me, because Rick and I have arrested people much bigger than Rodney King, even though he was 6'5", 260 pounds. There's a lot of people bigger than Rodney King that we've had to arrest. And with sufficient manpower, you can do that without striking one blow with a nightstick. I know because in the 10 years I was on the Phoenix Police Department before I had to take medical retirement because of me being seriously injured in an arrest scenario of a dope smuggler, I never once struck anybody with my baton. Not once. Because I knew that there was ways to arrest people without physically injuring them. Now, I must say luck comes into that too, because there are times that I use my baton to disarm people and to use it as a come-along and to take them under control, but not by striking them with it. Now, it is appropriate, and it's a part of training that you are allowed to use a baton to strike people, as Rick told you. But there's certain places you have to do it, and you have to try to minimize the damage so that you use just the right amount of force to get the person under control, and then you stop. Well, let's look at what came out of the beating of Rodney King. We had a trial. This is very interesting for everyone that has attended trials before. Probably most of you have been in a courtroom before and watched the judge and the attorneys go at each other. And if you're not, you probably watch Judge Wapner on television occasionally, you know. And you see what it's like in a courtroom. Of course, Judge Wapner's a bad idea to put in the minds of the American people because there's no jury. And the judge should just be an arbitrator. The judge is not there. In our society, the judge was never meant to be the decision maker in a trial. He was supposed to be an arbitrator, and the person would have counsel as their defense, and you'd have a prosecutor, and the judge would sit there and be sure that these guys played fair and that the person was given the proper defense. But today we have activist judges, and you saw this in the Rodney King's case. I told you yesterday, for those of you who are here, that judges today are appointed as political agents for the administration that's in power. And the further you go up to the district level and the federal level, the judges are even more political. Your best judges that I see across this country are the judges like you and I that can serve as your justice court judges. You don't have to be an attorney. You don't have to be a member of the bar. You're one of the people. You understand the people. You do not have a title of nobility, which our Constitution totally rejects and states is not legal and not lawful in our country. But judges do have a title of nobility today, and they will tell you if you come into their courtroom that they are God. They will use that term, that we are God in this courtroom, and the courtroom is theirs. It's not yours. And if you try to say anything to them, you'll be in contempt of court, and you will see that they are God in that courtroom. Well, in the Rodney King case, we found that a judge used techniques that officers have known about for years to control the jury outcome. There's a jury there, and instead of sitting back and being an arbitrator, the judge can take an active role in the prosecution or the defense. And the judge can decide the jury outcome by using at least 9 tactics that officers see in the courtroom quite often to cause the jurors to come out with a certain decision, and the jurors don't even know that they were controlled by the judge. And I'm going to go over a few of these because they were used, some of these were used in the Rodney King case. And so you should know them, and you should also go to court and look at them yourself as the judge applies these things. But he will only, or she will only apply these things I'm going to tell you about now in political trials. Now, a political trial means that the government, for some reason, wants a certain result out of the trial itself. Either they want somebody to get off, that's somebody important to the government, or they want somebody convicted that's important to the government. And this case was important to the government because they could get certain things out of this trial if it went a certain way. So look what happens. The judge can use something called voir dire in selecting the jury. The judge, and I'll cite you a good case in Los Angeles. There was a gentleman that was a leader of a white supremacist group called Tom Metzger. Now, I followed this trial because this was a political trial, no doubt about it. The government, anyone that takes a position today that they have pride in the white race is automatically politically incorrect in our society today. And if you go to trial, it becomes a political trial. We won't get into all the reasons for this, but it just happens to be that way today in society. Tom Metzger, of course, believed that the white race was superior, and he was what he would tell you to your face, I'm a white racist. And so he went to trial, and I'll give you a good idea how this voir dire works. The prosecution of Tom Metzger had 25 attorneys and psychologists pick the jurors. Now, do you think our founding fathers, when they put in the Constitution the right to a trial by jury of your peers, that they meant for the government or the defense to sit down and analyze, to contact people's relatives that are prospective jurors and try to find out everything about that person before they pick them to serve on a jury? No. They meant for it to be a random selection of people. In other words, right now we have a random selection. We could pick a jury right here. We could go around and say, I'm going to pick out 12 people and you will serve on the jury. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll pick 12. You're the jury. You ask them no questions. They serve because you live in this community. You are a jury of a person's peers that lives in your community. But they can now stack the deck any way they want to. And in the Rodney King case, they spent days and days and days picking the right jury that they wanted to hear this case. Another thing they use in the Rodney King case is a change of venue. It says in the Constitution you can't do that. In other words, they moved it out of the community where a jury of their peers could be selected into another community. Why did they do this? Because it's a political trial. They say, well, you know, the people are mad and the people are upset and they know something about this case, so we got to remove the trial because the people know something about the case. It's very important that the people that serve on the jury know something about the case, that they live in that community. And so what do we do in political trials? We remove that so that then they can manipulate what kind of jury they want. And this happened in the Rodney King case. I could go on, but I see I've got to hurry up here. We're running out of time. But another thing that they like to use is hiding from the jury their rights as jurors and their powers. The jurors are the sovereigns in court. Don't tell the judge that today because he says he's the sovereign, he's the God. And you jurors must listen to me. And what I tell you to do, you do. And what I don't tell you can't do, you don't do. Okay? So I control everything. Well, we have something in our country today called FEMA. Not FEMA, but FEJA. FEJA is Fully Informed Jury Amendment. One of the greatest things we've got going now to restore our constitutional government. And that is that the jurors have a right to decide the law and the fact in court. Today, the judges have usurped that power. And they say, listen, you guys will just decide if he did it or if he didn't do it. You can't even discuss the law. You can't even discuss if this law should be applied to this defendant. And by that, they've taken so much power away from the jury to where a political trial turns into a kangaroo court. And so that's another way they use. Another one is the judge will withhold evidence. Go to court, sit in a courtroom and watch it as the judge will selectively withhold certain evidence and allow certain evidence, withhold certain witnesses and allow other witnesses. Who is this guy? What is he trying to do when he does this? Can you imagine how you can manipulate the jury outcome, the decision, if you withhold certain witnesses and allow certain evidence and don't allow certain evidence? And